The morning sun cast long shadows across Ibrahim Traoré's desk when the unmarked envelope arrived, inside a weathered photograph and a cryptic note. The photo showed French officials loading wooden crates onto military aircraft in 1962. The note read, 35 tons of gold stolen. Documentation exists. 72 hours before records destroyed forever. Ibrahim studied the photograph carefully. If authentic, it documented something that had existed only as rumors that departing French colonial administration had removed massive gold reserves just before Burkina Faso's independence. "Get me Ministers Diallo and Saodogo immediately," he commanded. Within 30 minutes, his most trusted advisors assembled. Finance Minister Aisha Diallo examined the photograph with professional skepticism. "Mr. President, this could be manipulation." "Why now when we're renegotiating mining contracts?" Security Chief Marcus Saodogo agreed. "The timing is suspicious, but Ibrahim had already decided, if it's authentic, 35 tons of gold would transform our nation. These coordinates point to Zurich. We investigate." The stakes couldn't be higher. By evening, their findings were shocking. The photograph showed no digital alteration. More tellingly, National Archives revealed suspicious gaps in financial records from 1962. "Pages deliberately removed," explained Professor Kouatate, the archives director. "Records before and after meticulously document gold production. But 3 months before independence, nothing." The coordinates led to a private vault facility in Zurich, not a bank, a discreet storage company for clients seeking anonymity. "I'm going personally," Ibrahim announced. Both advisors objected immediately. "Too dangerous, too uncertain. If this is about our stolen wealth, it should be recovered by Burkina Faso's elected leader," Ibrahim insisted. "Besides, this message was addressed to me specifically." The flight to Zurich was tense. Ibrahim studied the photograph repeatedly. These French officials showed no guilt, just men conducting routine business. Yet if accurate, this documented one of history's greatest thefts. What they found in Zurich changed everything. The vault facility was an unassuming building in the financial district. Inside, the director, Mr. Heinrich, greeted them with professional neutrality. "The box you seek has unusual provisions," Heinrich explained. "Accessible only by Burkina Faso's sitting president, only with this specific code, and only within 72 hours of notification." "How much time remains?" Ibrahim asked. 58 hours. They were led through multiple security checkpoints to a climate-controlled vault. Box 1962, Ni081 awaited. Inside the sealed container, a USB drive, a leather journal, and a golden key, unlike any modern design. The USB contained hundreds of scanned documents, colonial records, correspondence, inventories of gold reserves accumulated between 1945 and 1962, orders for strategic relocation of precious metal assets. But the journal was the real bombshell. It belonged to Antoine Dubois, a French colonial administrator who documented the gold transfer with meticulous detail. April 12, 1962. The scale becomes clearer daily. 35 tons of gold to be removed without the incoming African government's knowledge. I expressed concerns about legality. Commissioner Bernard reminded me all assets remain French property until official independence. A legalistic view ignoring moral reality. The final entry, dated 2 days before independence. The last aircraft departed today, vaults empty. Paris has its gold. Burkina Faso begins nationhood with empty coffers. Commissioner Bernard toasted our successful asset protection. I cannot share his satisfaction. History may call this prudent administration. Truth would call it theft. But the golden key remained a mystery. Evidence alone doesn't recover gold, Saodogo said quietly. Where is it now? Paris would have absorbed it into national reserves, Diallo concluded. Impossible to identify. Perhaps not, Ibrahim said thoughtfully. Dubois had regrets. What if this key leads to something more? The mystery deepened in unexpected ways. Back in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim reported strange reactions from French officials to their discreet inquiries. Not denial, but sudden diplomatic unavailability. There's more, Diallo added. Colonial production reports showed declining output in the 1950s, but mining employment increased. Production was systematically underreported. Ibrahim shared their Zurich findings. We need to find what this key opens. Hours of analysis revealed a pattern in Dubois' journal, references to ensuring partition and divided security. He's using code, Professor Kuyede realized. He didn't trust his fellow administrators. What if he divided evidence not in mutation in Zurich, but something else in France? References to Lyon's old banking quarter appeared throughout. A search yielded a small private bank from the 1960s, now absorbed by a larger institution, but with original vaults intact. I need to go to Lyon, Ibrahim decided.
Entering France with this knowledge is dangerous.
So Adogo warned, which is why we need a diversion. Announce I'm attending an economic forum in Brussels. The Lyon discovery exceeded all expectations. Using diplomatic resources from friendly nations, Ibrahim entered France undetected. By midnight, they reached Lyon's old banking quarter. The former private bank, now part of Crédit Agricole, maintained historic vaults. When the golden key turned in lock 1962G, a heavy drawer revealed a sealed metal tube. Inside, a detailed map of Reserve d'Or National, one of France's gold storage facilities. Most critically, it highlighted a section labeled Acquisitions Coloniales 1945 to 1962 inches, with vault numbers and access codes. Attached was a letter to the future leader of Burkina Faso. If you're reading this, 60 years have passed since I participated in a criminal act. The removal of your nation's gold was presented as financial prudence, but was theft from a newborn nation. The enclosed documents provide evidence and location. Your gold was kept segregated within French reserves, partly from routine, partly from unspoken acknowledgement of its questionable status. I've spent decades in quiet service to your country, establishing schools and clinics, attempting to repay a debt never mine alone to bear. This disclosure is an absolution, but perhaps allows justice. Antoine Dubois, January 1965. Ibrahim made the boldest move yet. He contacted the French president directly, requesting an urgent private meeting regarding a historical matter affecting both nations. The unusual request from an African leader, not officially in France, created diplomatic confusion. By morning, French intelligence confirmed Ibrahim's presence, creating a delicate situation. President Emmanuel Cartier received him at the Élysée Palace that evening, diplomatic cordiality masking confusion. Your presence without notification is unusual, Cartier said. Some matters require discretion, Ibrahim replied, placing the folder on the table. 35 tons of gold, President Cartier, removed from my country before independence in 1962. Cartier's expression remained neutral, but tension revealed the impact. A significant claim about events 60 years past. Not a claim, documented fact. Ibrahim revealed the colonial records, journal entries, photographs. Your predecessors systematically emptied our reserves, ensuring Burkina Faso would begin in poverty despite decades of gold production. Even if true, there are complex questions of jurisdiction, colonial legal frameworks. I anticipated that. Ibrahim interrupted, revealing the map of the French gold repository. Cartier's composure faltered. Where did you get classified information about current facilities? From the same official who documented the theft and spent his life regretting it. The negotiation lasted 5 hours. Legal experts, financial advisors, diplomatic strategists joined the increasingly complex discussion. By midnight, an agreement emerged. France wouldn't acknowledge theft but would establish a historical reconciliation fund for Burkina Faso, capitalized with gold transfers equivalent to the documented amount, adjusted for inflation. Transfer in phases over 3 years, structured as voluntary recognition rather than restitution. In exchange, Burkina Faso would ensure transparent use of funds with joint oversight. How did you discover this after 60 years? Cartier asked finally. The evidence was meant to remain sealed until 2025. Someone sent notification early. Ibrahim admitted. I still don't know who. As Ibrahim left, dawn was breaking over Paris. He carried not gold yet, but something more valuable, the promise of historical justice. The investigation revealed a stunning truth. Security Chief Ouagadougou's discreet investigation eventually solved the mystery. Antoine Dubois had died in 1998. After decades of philanthropic work in Burkina Faso, his daughter Sophie Dubois had continued his initiatives through a small foundation. When diagnosed with terminal illness in 2020, Sophie had activated her father's plan early, ensuring she'd live to see resolution. She died 2 weeks after sending the notification, never knowing if her father's quest would succeed. 6 months later, a formal ceremony in Ouagadougou announced the Franco-Burkina Historical Reconciliation Fund. The carefully worded statement spoke of addressing historical imbalances without explicitly acknowledging theft. But the substance was clear. Gold valued at 2.8 billion euros would transfer to Burkina Faso over 3 years, with the first shipment of 10 tons arriving that day. Ibrahim visited the foundation Sophie had maintained. A modest clinic and school had operated for decades in rural Burkina Faso. A plaque bore the inscription, "In service of a debt that cannot be fully repaid." Ibrahim added a second plaque, "Some debts are inherited, some are chosen. Both have power to heal." The first projects funded by returned gold were taking shape: educational facilities, healthcare infrastructure, sustainable agriculture, renewable energy. Unlike foreign aid with restrictive conditions, these resources belonged fully to Burkina Faso. In his national address, Ibrahim emphasized broader significance. What was taken 60 years ago wasn't just gold but opportunity. That opportunity, delayed but not denied, now returns not as charity but as justice long deferred. The international impact was immediate. Other former colonies began investigating their own historical surveys. The Burkina Faso precedent sparked continental conversation about colonial resource extraction. 1 year after the first transfer, Ibrahim authorized a museum documenting both the gold's removal and return. Central exhibits included Dubois's journal and the Golden Key. A special wing honored Antoine and Sophie Dubois, acknowledging how one family's 60-year quest for redemption had reshaped a nation's future. The exhibits quote from Antoine's letter, "True reconciliation requires not just acknowledgement of wrongs but tangible restoration. Some debts can never be fully repaid, but the attempt itself has healing power." For Ibrahim, the gold represented proof that historical injustices could be addressed, that the arc of history could bend toward justice when guided by persistence and moral clarity. But this was just the beginning. 2 years later, Ibrahim received another package. Inside, Sophie Dubois' personal journal and flash drive, revealing Project Sahara, systematic misdirection of mineral surveys across Francophone Africa from 1960 to 1985. The evidence showed coordinated programs providing African nations with incomplete geological data while maintaining accurate surveys for French corporate use. "If authentic," said Minister Diallo. Every resource survey in Francophone Africa potentially understated critical deposits. The coordinates matched exactly with Burkina Faso's new survey findings. Deposits just discovered were documented 60 years ago, then hidden. Ibrahim contacted presidents of 4 other affected nations, Mali, Niger, Senegal, Ivory Coast, sharing the evidence. "We have 48 hours before mining corporations approach with proposals based on information they've had, while we remained ignorant," he told them. "I suggest we coordinate." The response was unprecedented. Within days, the West African Resource Sovereignty Alliance was formed. 5 nations presenting a united front, leveraging collective wealth for equitable partnerships. Burkina Faso's experience with return gold had taught the power of negotiating from knowledge and strength. That power multiplied across 5 nations. When international mining executives arrived with proposals, they found not desperate individual nations but a coordinated alliance with full knowledge of their resources. Within weeks, Project Sahara revelations spread beyond the initial 5 countries. Former colonies across Africa began questioning decades of assumptions about their mineral wealth. 3 months later, the 5 leaders signed formal treaties establishing their cooperative framework. The ceremony was held at the museum documenting the gold's return. In his address, Ibrahim acknowledged the source. None of this would be possible without 2 individuals' courage. Antoine Dubois documented the gold's removal. His daughter Sophie ensured truth wouldn't remain buried. Their actions remind us that historical justice often depends on individual conscience, transcending institutional loyalty. 5 years later, the transformation was complete. Ibrahim stood at the newly completed African Resources Governance Institute in Ouagadougou. Delegates from 37 African nations gathered for the first Pan-African Resource Sovereignty Summit. The institute, built with proceeds from repatriated gold, was staffed by African scientists and policy experts who'd returned from international corporations to contribute to continental transformation. What began as response to historical injustice has evolved into a new model for how Africa's resources can serve Africa's development on Africa's terms. Ibrahim told the gathering, evidence was visible throughout Burkina Faso and alliance nations. Processing facilities ensured materials were transformed into higher-value products within African borders. Educational systems emphasized geological sciences and resource governance. Healthcare infrastructure reached previously underserved regions. Most significantly, the Alliance's strategic minerals reserve had become one of the world's largest holdings of rare earth elements, giving unprecedented leverage in negotiations. 32 nations signed the Ouagadougou Declaration, establishing the Pan-African Resource Governance Framework, with harmonized transparency standards and mutual support. The summit's conclusion brought unexpected visitor. Pierre Dubois, grandson of Antoine and nephew of Sophie, had been located in Canada. Your family's legacy has transformed not just Burkina Faso but the continent, Ibrahim told him. I never knew the full extent until you contacted me, Pierre admitted. There was family estrangement. My father didn't understand grandfather's devotion to Africa. Yet you're here now. Once I understood their moral stand, I couldn't stay away. I needed to see what grew from their actions. Ibrahim showed him the transformed skyline of Ouagadougou, new development extending to the horizon. Physical infrastructure is secondary. Primary transformation is in governance, sovereignty, our relationship to resources and the world. Your grandfather and aunt understood genuine independence requires not just political but resource sovereignty. 10 years after the mysterious envelope, Ibrahim stood at the graduation ceremony for the first class of Dubois scholars, 50 students from 23 African nations trained in resource governance and sustainable development. You enter careers at a pivotal moment, he told graduates. For generations, Africa's resources enriched others while our people remained poor. That pattern is breaking, not through confrontation but through knowledge, cooperation, strategic vision. The evidence was continental. The framework included 43 nations. Processing facilities transformed materials within African borders. The strategic reserve influenced global markets. Resource contracts included mandatory technology transfer, local processing, environmental protection. Transparent governance ensured mineral wealth translated directly into human development. In the Institute's Memorial Hall, comprehensive exhibition documented the journey from colonial extraction to sovereign development. At center, the original Zurich safety deposit box, golden key from Lion, first gold bar from repatriation. Well, beneath portraits of Antoine and Sophie Dubois, truth revealed, justice pursued, legacy transformed, from stolen gold to sovereign future. Ibrahim penned a letter for the time capsule. To those reading in 2075, transformation began with simple conscience, one individual documenting truth, rather than participating in deception. From that seed grew recovery of stolen wealth, revelation of hidden knowledge, new model of resource governance transforming our continent. The journey taught genuine independence, requires resource sovereignty, knowledge about and authority over what lies beneath. Transparency reshapes power relationships at foundation. Historical injustice, while never fully undone, catalyzes creating just systems for future generations. What was taken science, gold knowledge, opportunity, has been reclaimed, not as compensation but foundation for possibilities. May you build wisely upon this foundation. May sovereignty create prosperity we could only imagine. Remember, transformation begins with single conscience, amplified by those seeing possibilities where others see limitations. Outside, Ouagadougou's lights shimmered brighter, more widespread than a decade earlier. Similar transformations spread continentally, as nations reclaimed not just resources but resource futures. The debt Antoine Dubois sought to repay could never be fully balanced. But his conscience, preserved by daughter's determination and realized through Ibrahim's leadership, created something more valuable than repayment. A new beginning. The golden legacy was complete, not ending but fullness. A circle of transformation beginning with stolen wealth, culminating in sovereign development. What was taken in darkness returned in light, illuminating not just Burkina Faso's past but Africa's future.